Morning, girl. I hope we are all well and ready to start our lesson. In this lesson, we have our teachers present, Teacher Deborah, Teacher Irene, Teacher Percy. If they are not yet here, I think they're on their way. So I guess we can start. So last week, we started off on drama, and I hope we still remember what drama is. Maybe let me do a check. Can anyone remind us of what drama is? Okay, our D4.
Drama is a performance of written dialogue for a radio, theater, or television.
Okay, thank you. Rukia, do you have something different?
Teacher, no. Teacher, about
Yes.
when you say drama is a story acted out before an audience that is called a play.
Okay, thank you very much, Rukia. So it looks like we still remember. Primrose, you'll be the last hand.
I think to me, drama is a creative way of expressing one
Primrose, your network is not very good.
feelings through action, usually performed on stage.
Okay, do you want to repeat what you've said? We didn't hear the first part.
I say that drama is a creative way of expressing one's feelings through action, especially when performed on stage.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Primrose. We have got some of what you have said. Okay, so it looks like we still remember what drama is. So we are continuing. We had been introduced to the characteristics of drama, and Primrose, can you mute yourself? So we had been introduced to some of the characteristics of drama, and we were left with an assignment. I hope we attempted to do that assignment. It was sent to the Google Classroom. Okay, probably that is where we'll start our lesson. So we had an excerpt from a play, and there were two questions to work on. One is which characteristics of drama you saw in the excerpt. And then the second one, just to think, okay? Just to think of different ways that Noah's fate could end. So different ways in which Noah's story could end. And we're just supposed to think about that. I think I'd like some people to read the different characters for us. Only one person's hand is up. Okay, now I have 2, 3, okay, 4. So our D4, you'll be the narrator. Alicia Kasozi, you'll be mom. Lina Giweji, you'll be Noah. Who else do we have? We have the class people. Dagano Queen, you can be the teacher. Okay, we also have an assistant teacher there. Unfortunately, now I can't see other people. But anyhow, if you've raised your hand and you get to Mirembe Divine, I think you can be the assistant teacher. If we get to a part where someone hasn't been assigned, one of you can take on that part. Okay, I think we can start. It's a short read, so we should be able to do it in about 2 minutes. Okay, so scene 1 is at home. The narrator, can you start?
Once upon a time, there was a boy called Noah.
Breakfast is ready. Now be good at school, Noah.
I am always good at school.
That's not what I've heard.
That teacher can't stand me.
All I'm saying is this: try hard, listen, then everything will be fine.
The
Okay.
class.
Scene 2,
Right.
the classroom.
Right. Listen up. I am going to hand out the following worksheet. Everyone take one and begin reading through the maths questions. Focus, no messing around.
Two boys at the front start fighting.
Mirembe, you're the assistant teacher. Mirembe Divine. Okay, can someone read the assistant teacher?
Now, boys.
Here, there is one each.
Naughty kid at the back gets a sheet and folds it into a paper plane.
Hey, what are you doing?
Wait and see, my friend. Wait and see. Sends paper plane to the front.
Who was that?
Naughty kid snatches paper plane from kid and points.
It was Noah.
Oh, what are you going to do, miss? Please, let me explain.
No.
No, this is an outrage, an affront. So, disrespect and outrageous. He is going to be sent to the principal. Kids react, and to detention, kids react, and there will be a letter home. Rings deputy. Hello, is this the deputy principal? Would you please escort a pupil to the principal?
Noah, again? I'm so disappointed in you. What will your mother say when I ring her this time? Huh?
Noah,
Haven't you
again.
got an answer?
It wasn't me, honestly.
You can't try
What will your
that
mother
line
say
with
when
the
I ring her this time?
But it's
Ha,
not going to
haven't you
wash
got an
well.
answer?
Knocks on the principal's door.
Okay, thank you. Those who have read the poem, rather the excerpt for us. So you had 2 questions on this excerpt. We'll start with the first one. Which characteristics of drama did you see as you read? Teacher Deborah or Teacher Irene, please help me identify people to answer.
Okay. Alicia Kasozi.
I left my hand.
Imo Kumasi. Atfunda Vanessa.
I saw the characters, I saw the setting and events.
And even? Okay, I've had characters and setting. I didn't hear the last one. Nalule, Rukia.
Teacher, my answer is it has a theme, but here she said events. I think it's strong. I think it's an event is an action that is is happening on the stage.
Okay. Appeal, Grace.
I saw a dialogue.
Okay, she saw a dialogue. Yvonne, Liliana. Nakaliowa.
I was also going to say a dialogue, but Apio had mentioned it.
Okay. Nachibuka Enid. Enid Mercy. Chirabo. You saw characters, okay. Now Chirabo Hope.
I saw, okay, it was shorter than a movie. It was shorter than a movie.
So it's short.
Yes.
Teacher Teddy, should I take more hands?
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Teacher Deborah. Thank you, students. I think some of us actually did the work. So we're going to continue with our characteristics just to explain them a bit more, and maybe we'll probably get back to that passage. Okay, so we're continuing with our characteristics. And we've already started on activity 1. Which characteristics of drama did you see? We have answered that. So in this image, we are kind of looking at the teacher, and probably this little boy is Noah. Okay, probably. So which different ways can Noah's fate end? Teacher, there were only 2 people to give us which ways they thought of.
Our default.
I think he could get expelled, he could get detention, then he could also be forgiven if he explains the truth.
Okay, thank you. Another person?
Namboze, Patricia.
He can apologize.
Okay, he can apologize.
Noah can apologize to the teacher.
Okay, he can apologize and maybe he'll get forgiveness. Well, this second question is just to open your minds for you to realize that each one of us can actually write a poem. Sorry, each one of us can write a play that can be acted out by different people. And even if we have like one scene of the play given to us, all of us can have different endings of that particular play. So as we read plays, our mind should be open to the fact that we ourselves can actually write these plays down. And you realize that when school gets back to normal, we have things like GAPA, where people can actually write a play for their house and ensure that it is acted out in the way that they want it, and earn marks or positions for their houses. But the same applies to the world out there. When we get out into the world, don't get stuck. You can actually write a play that can be acted on stage and people earn money from it. So as you study literature, please have your minds open. If you discover that you can write a poem, you can write a play, you can write a novel, please set your mind to it and do it, because it can earn you some money. So many of us can end Noah's fate differently. Back to our characteristics. Okay, so when we asked about the characteristics that people saw, someone mentioned plot, okay? The narration of the story in sequential or chronological order, okay? You'll find that usually when people write plays, there's an introduction where they introduce their characters. So we are introduced to different people. And then when we know these people, a conflict is introduced, okay? So in this conflict, there's probably a problem that needs to be solved or a difficulty that these characters face, and this difficulty must be solved. It could be people who are corrupt, and the corrupt nature needs to be dealt with. It could be people in love, and maybe one needs to tell the other how much they love them. So that is the conflict. That is what needs to be solved. It could be parents conflicting with their daughter, maybe over school or over their behavior and things like that. And this conflict needs to be resolved. So plays are usually in 3 parts, okay? They introduce the characters, then there's a conflict that is brought in, or some problem or difficulty that characters face. And eventually, this conflict or problem or difficulty has to be resolved in what we call the climax, okay? So plays are usually in those 3 parts. That is the plot. Teacher Deborah, please help me with whoever that is.
Done.
Okay, thank you. So plot is an important characteristic, like we said last time, and it spells out the sequential order of events in the story. So you need to know how your plays will run, okay? Then we also looked at setting. And we talked about it, excuse me, being a place or time of event. When you look at this setting, what kind of setting? Teacher Deborah, any hands?
Not yet. Okay. Nakalio
Hold on,
Waibon.
teacher, you are breaking.
Nakalio.
If you looked at this setting,
Yeah, and I think
you say,
like I think it's in the village because of the huts, like in the village.
You want to answer? Audrey, Anna?
Me, teacher.
Yes.
I can't see the screen right now. Oh, okay, now I can see it. I wanted to answer about the setting. the setting of the.
Please go ahead.
It definitely looks like a village setting because you can see the huts and also the boy carrying, I think a boy or a girl carrying something on his or her head. And you see people in kind of like traditional clothes that usually people who live in suburb areas wear. So I guess that's all.
Okay, thank you. Elisheba.
I just wanted to say it was,
You're breaking.
it's like a rural setting.
Okay.
It's a rural setting.
Okay, thank you. Namagembe Margarine.
Okay.
Excuse me, teacher.
Yes, please.
Teacher Deborah, I think that will be the last one.
I think it's a rural
Excuse me, teacher.
because our trees, they are cooking using firewood, they are also huts. So I think it's a village setting.
Excuse me, teacher.
Eunice, what is it?
I had a question. I've kind of not understood plot well. Can you please give us an example of what you were explaining? Like of how it is in real life, an explanation. Like just an example. Yes.
Teacher Teddy, I want to request the girls to now put their hands down. Please put your hands down, mute your microphones, and then allow the teacher to speak. If your hand persists, it means you're not even paying attention to what the teacher is saying because you're aiming at the question. So put your hands down. So Teacher Teddy, over to you. I don't seem to hear from you, Teacher Teddy. Are you there? So I could just take on the last question. You were asking about.
Yes, I'm there. I don't know if you can.
I can now hear you.
Okay, I hope I'm clear.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Sorry about that. I am beginning to get network issues, but someone has asked something to do with the plot. I'll give a simple example of a story that I think all of you have looked at or read. We could have a play on Cinderella, for example. So we are introduced to the characters at the start of the play. Probably we would have Cinderella, her wicked stepmother, and then her two stepsisters. Then later on, along the way, after we have been introduced to those, the conflict comes in. Okay, so there we have the conflict to do with the prince and then the ball, and that has to be resolved. Cinderella leaves her slipper, and so the prince needs to look for the girl that he danced with. So that is the conflict. And then eventually when he moves around, he finds her and she tries on the slipper, and to the astonishment of her stepsisters, it actually fits her. So that is like the climax. So when you're looking at plot, it's looking at the flow of events, but in a particular order. Okay, so we usually have the plot. When we are looking at a play, we get introduced to characters, then the conflict is brought out, and eventually this conflict has to be resolved. I hope I've answered that question. Teacher Deborah, just in case I go off, I might have to stop the sharing so that someone does the sharing and then I speak. So I'll get back to where we were. Okay, I hope I can still be heard. So we're
Yes.
moving on to, please put down your hands. Put down your hands, you'll ask at the end. Okay, so we're moving on to stage directions. That is another characteristic of plays. Okay, and these stage directions usually give a clue on what should be done when people are on stage. And usually these words are in italics or brackets. I think at some point you kept hearing someone reading them as we were going through the extract. So they guide the movement or body language of characters. So maybe they say so and so laughed, or so and so onto the stage and things like that. Then they also guide on which props to use. Teacher Deborah, can you hear me?
Yes, we are getting you.
Teacher Deborah?
Yes, we are getting you, Teacher Teddy.
Okay. So they also guide on which props to use. That is what things to. Okay. What are you putting tables and desks and things like you're creating? Is it jovial? Is it sad? Do we have drums? Okay.
Teacher Teddy. Looks like we have lost you. You may have to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Right. Teacher Deborah, please help me send that back to Mr. Oluka to screen
Working
share
on it.
in case I go off again. Okay, so we are still looking at what things can be in the stage directions. So the stage directions are usually those words in italics that guide on what should happen when characters are on stage. And they usually guide the actors or whoever is producing that play to ensure that everything goes according to plan. Then away from the stage directions, the other thing that is important is the theme. Someone has already pointed out that the theme from the excerpt that we had, and the major concern of the playwright. Okay, so why is this person writing the play? Do they want to talk about greed? Do they want to talk about injustice? Do they want to talk about bullying, like in the excerpt, the justice? You know, there are various about good versus evil, love, okay? So usually a poet has something that a playwright has something that they want to talk about. Now that thing is usually universal, and it is a concern that runs throughout the play. and it is what the playwright wants to be solved. So because it is what the playwright is concerned about, it becomes a theme. Okay, so it is the main concern of the playwright. I've given some examples here: love, greed, corruption. So anything that concerns the playwright is the theme. Okay, so before we get into that, I need to take us back to the excerpt that we had. Able to see these things that, so someone has said that they saw the setting. And when you look at the start of the excerpt, they talk about scene 1 at home. So at home gives us the particular place that we are at. And when they talk about breakfast is ready, what time of day do we have breakfast? So that gives us the time. Usually breakfast is in the morning. Okay, so we are able to tell that this particular play or piece of drama begins at home and the time is actually in the morning. Then someone else also talked about dialogue. Okay, so dialogue, we all know, is generally that speech. Okay, so the whole speech is dialogue. So what makes a play or drama is dialogue. So everything that is written down as spoken by characters becomes our dialogue. Then we also have the various characters. I think people have mentioned those. So you see that out of the 6 so far, we have 3 of them. Then the stage directions. I hope we kept seeing them as people are reading. Here we have one in brackets, always echoed by dog. Okay, so we have probably a home setting where we must have a dog. And then at some point they tell us that the students react and things like that. All those are part of the stage directions. Okay, then another characteristic that is part of this excerpt is the plot. That is a summary of the events. They introduce us to the various characters. We get to know the mother, we get to know the teacher, we get to know the principal. And as they introduce us to these characters, we also get to see the conflict, especially when he gets to his class. That is where the conflict is introduced. So we begin to see the plot of this story. Now, the various endings that you people have given, I think someone talked about asks for forgiveness or apologizes, like that. Now there we are beginning to set, so we are beginning to write how we are going to solve this conflict. So whenever we write a play, it must have those characteristics. It must have the setting, it must have a plot, it must have dialogue, it must have the themes, and the setting should be clear for everyone to see. So as you read the plays that you will read in class, as you write your own plays, those characteristics will be very important. Okay, probably at this point, we'll take some questions before we proceed. Any questions?
At Kunda, Vanessa's hand went up first.
Teacher, I was just asking, is the plot the same as events?
Yes, Vanessa. The plot is the same as the events. The events in a particular order, in chronology, okay? In sequence.
Kahuga, Charity. Charity. Dagano Queen Esther.
So I was asking that is the narrator a character? Because on the slide she just showed, it said the narrator was a character and he isn't like talking to any of the characters in the play.
Okay. In this particular case, you can choose to call the narrator a character or not, but there are details that that narrator gives us as we go along. And because of that, they can be a character. But if you just want them to be in the background, that is still well.
Okay, teacher.
Namagembe, Margarine.
Teacher, I wanted to ask that the conflict, is it like there was in the play, like let's say this one doesn't want this one and then they're like they doesn't want this one to achieve what their goals? Is that the conflict? Like how you said in Cinderella, something like that. Is that a conflict? Teacher, did you get me?
I haven't understood what you're asking. Please ask again.
Okay, like when you gave us an example of Cinderella, right? And then you say that the part where she threw her shoe and then the stepmother or the harsh stepmother who didn't want her. Like what I am asking, you said in the plot there are the characters, the names, the introduction where they introduce them, and then the conflict. I'm asking the conflict, is it this part where the stepmother doesn't want her, she's mistreating her, she's stopping her from going to the prince, something like that?
Okay. It is very possible for a play to have more than one conflict. Okay. So when you look at Cinderella, you can have that conflict between Cinderella and her stepmother as well as sisters. They don't like her. And eventually that is solved when she gets married to the prince. So now she's way above them, kind of thing. Okay. Then the other conflict can also be with the prince trying to find the love of his life, the girl that he fell in love with, moving around the town with the glass slipper, okay? And that is later solved when he actually finds Cinderella. So it is very possible to have more than one conflict, okay?
Thank you, teacher.
Kahuga, Charity. I gave you an opportunity, but you're not responding.
Teacher, I had gone off, but I wanted to ask, is it like a must that every play must have a conflict?
Yes, Charity. There is no book that is written without a conflict, okay? So every novel you read, every play you read, the basis is the conflict, okay? There has to be that thing
Yes.
Troubles the writer so much that they think they need to write about it. And whatever they write about is either resolved or they leave it to you, the audience, to resolve it. Okay? So every play must have a conflict. Yes.
Then I also wanted to ask, there is a question that Vanessa asked, but I didn't get it because of my network. I was just asking if you could repeat it.
Which question is that, Charity?
So I didn't get it, but you were answering about something of the plot being the same with something else, but I didn't get it.
The question was about the plot being the same as events.
Okay. Charity, I said that events make the plot, okay? So every time that we give events in a particular order, in the order in which they happen, then we are looking at the plot.
I think lastly it is going to be Chirabo Eunice Hope. People, put your hand down after asking a question. So,
Excuse me, teacher.
yes, Chirabo.
No, it's me, Marjorie. Now, I just wanted to ask that.
Excuse me, teacher.
Marjorie, it is Chirabo's turn.
Okay, sorry.
Excuse me, teacher. Is this one going to be put, the recording, on the Google Classroom? Because our connection wasn't good.
Shirabo, I think every lesson that we have had is on the Google Classroom, okay? So you don't need to ask that question. Whenever lessons are done, the work is sent to the platform.
Marjorie, what were you asking?
No. So I've got the answer. I left someone else. I got the answer. It's okay. Sorry.
Can you now put your hand down? Charity too. And mute your mic.
Excuse me, teacher. Since we have finished answering the two questions that were about the play, so should we write the play in our books and answer those two questions, or we were just going through to understand more about the characteristics of a play?
Okay, Charity, you don't need to write that play in your books. What you need to write are the characteristics of a play or drama. And then the excerpt can just guide you to remember certain things, but you don't need to write it. I think by now it should be in your mind. It's a simple one, okay? So just write the characteristics of drama, and then you can give your own examples to help you understand even better. Someone in the chat has asked, can the play just be for fun without conflict? Like I have said, plays can be for fun, but they must have conflict, okay? There should be something that is resolved. You can make them funny, but there'll always be that one thing that you need to be resolved, and that becomes the conflict, okay?
Yes. Teacher, I have a question, but it's about the English. Okay, like I'm confused about the report work that we do.
Charity, can you, this is a literature lesson. Can we first conclude with our literature and then you'll bring in the English question? Okay, we still have one more slide.
Charity, could you now put your hand down? It's been up for too long.
Okay, thank you, Tisha Deborah. So now that it looks like we have understood our we have understood our characteristics. We have an assignment activity because I'd like to encourage every one of us to become a writer in one way or another. Our play doesn't need to be long. So we are going to write out one page of a play. And I want you to think outside the box. I'm not going to give you any particular theme to write on because I want your minds to run crazy. And you're going to write out one page of a play. Keep in mind that your play must be decent, and keep in mind that it must have the characteristics that we have studied about. Okay? Keep the storyline interesting and simple. Okay? So we're going to write out that play in our books. Keep the storyline interesting, involve the characteristics that we have talked about. One page of a counter book, not an exercise book. If you're using an exercise book, then you have to write 2 pages. Okay? So make sure that your play has all the characteristics that we have been looking at. When you finish writing this play, just keep it in your books. You don't have to post it to the platform, but we shall ask a few of you to read your plays for us, or to tell us your storyline, something like that, in our next lesson. And then probably when you get back to school, we shall have a better face-to-face when everyone has their play in front of them. Okay, so that is our assignment for the week. Like I have said, the work will be posted on Google. So just check if you haven't captured the assignment. I don't know if there are any more questions.
Our D4?
And the play may be more than 1 pages.
Can it be more than 1 page?
If you decide to go more than 1 page, then it shouldn't be more than 2 pages. Okay, but like we have said, keep it interesting and simple. Don't go overboard.
Louise Kwagala?
Teacher, does it have to be like a full play or just like a scene of the play?
You can do one scene. You can do one scene just as long as we are introduced to the characters and begin to see the conflict. Okay.
Namagembe Margarine? Margarine, were you asking? Matkunda Vanessa? Atkunda Vanessa?
Teacher, the question I have is similar to the one Ndagano Queen Esther asked. It's like about like those people who be passing, like if it's on a stage, those people who be passing saying that fighting is going on, like the stage directions, are they part of the characters or not?
If we are looking at an actual stage, holding maybe charts or that have information for the audience. Those are not necessarily information. It could be information on passage of time, really characters.
Namalwa, Pamela.
Okay, Vivian, Sandra, are you?
Excuse me, teacher. In this play we are going to write in our books, should we also involve the narrator and everything, or just a play?
Sandra, like I have said, I want you to have an open mind. Don't copy from the excerpt. Write what you feel, okay, in one page. So it's up to you. You don't have to have a narrator. If you want one, well and good. If you don't want one, it is still okay. I want to see your creativity.
Chatted, there is only one hand left, our default. She has gone off. So the questions are done, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Teacher Deborah. I don't know if there's any teacher who wants to add something. Charity, your hand is up again.
Teacher Teddy?
Yes, Teacher Deborah.
Maybe just a word of caution as we write the play or that scene that we'll be writing in our books, we should be mindful. I am hearing people asking whether they should follow the things that were in the other play. We shouldn't follow the things that were in the other play, but we should follow the characteristics that we've learned about so that it is really a play and not a movie, not a novel, not a poem. So we really have to show that it is a play, and this will be based on the characteristics that we've learned about. Yes, that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Teacher Deborah. Amy, and then Charity will be the last because I think you wanted to ask an English question.
Teacher, just wondering if it's a must for every play to have a narrator.
Amy, you haven't been listening. I said, let your mind run wild. Don't copy what you have seen, okay? Use the characteristics that we have studied this week and last week to write out a one-page play. I hope your question is answered. Charity?
Teacher, I wanted to ask, like what we studied in the last lesson, were we supposed to write a report of our own, or were supposed to just write the sample report that was given?
Teacher Deborah, over to you.
You were supposed to write out the sample reports, but we promised that an assignment would be sent. Okay, so await an assignment. It is that assignment that will test your understanding of what we learned.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
Welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Teacher Deborah. Looks like our time is also out, so we are right on time. Girls, please don't forget that you have an assignment. Make use of your weekend very well. Otherwise, would like to thank you for participating. Hosanna, I don't know what you want to say.
Excuse me, teacher.
Can you say what you want to say? Hosanna, we cannot hear you. So allow me to conclude the lesson. If there's any additional question, please post it on Google Classroom. It will be answered. For now, you have an assignment. Make use of the weekend. Thank you for participating in this lesson. Please stay safe. God bless you.
Bless you too.
Bye, teacher.
Bye.
Me, teacher. Thank you for teaching.
Teacher.
Bye, teacher.
Bye, teacher. Thank you, teacher, for the lesson. We have understood.
Thank you for the lesson.